So a mere 2 days after the United States soberly remembered the second anniversary of the January 6th insurrection, Brazil began to suffer its own version of that fascistic riot. So typically speaking, this channel confines its analysis and commentary to domestic American politics. Not because global politics don't matter, but because we have a lot going on in this country, and it's hard for one person to keep track of it all, let alone an entire planet. That said, obviously because we're the wealthiest, most powerful, most influential country on the planet, very often things that go on here in the United States will have an influence on the activities and the trajectories of other countries. And unfortunately, right now, Brazil is suffering a bit of that with respect to the influence of the January 6th insurrection. What do I mean? Well, what I mean is supporters of Jair Bolsonaro, the right-wing president who lost his election in late October or November of last year, his supporters attacked 3 federal buildings in Brazil: the Brazilian Congress, the Brazilian Supreme Court, and the Brazilian executive residence, 1 week after the newly elected president, Lula Da Silva, was inaugurated. So the first immediate distinction is these people are not interrupting the peaceful transfer of power because power has already been transferred. They missed it by about a week. But supporters en masse, hundreds if not thousands, are attacking 3 separate federal buildings. Not just protesting, attacking. And there's some footage that we should take a look at here. So here you see thousands of people marching into, waving flags into the Brazilian Congress building. And from a distance, it looks a little rowdy, but almost like a sporting event. That's not the case. So you look at additional photographs and you'll see some disturbing similarities. Here you have people breaking into the actual congressional chambers, kind of like how Trump supporters did on January 6, 2021, where they sat behind the speaker's podium, went into then Speaker Pelosi's office, kicking back. They broke in through the barriers. They broke into the building. This is them breaking through the glass and entering the building as well. It's genuinely eerily similar, right? 2 years almost to the day. So this is police trying to keep them at bay as Bolsonaro supporters break past the security perimeter. They're, again, them breaking into the building, carrying flags and, Bolsonaro paraphernalia, concealing their identities. Again, them in one of the congressional buildings here, tearing things down, waving sticks and debris. And then, of course, that exterior shot of them marching into the building itself. I think there's some additional footage to look at just to kind of capture it all in all its eerie fascistic glory. So again, they're breaking into the building, vandalizing things, bashing stuff against the wall. It's the Brazilian version of January 6th, except there are 3 federal buildings being attacked. Axios is doing coverage of it. Bolsonaro supporters stormed Congress in Brazil's capital. Supporters of their former right-wing president, Jair Bolsonaro, stormed the National Congress building in the capital, climbing onto the roof and smashing parts of its glass structure. The incidents came just a week after President Lula Da Silva was sworn into office. Protesters also entered the Supreme Court and surrounded the presidential palace. Around 3,000 people took part in the remarkable demonstration, according to local media. Broadcast videos showed protesters smashing furniture inside the Congress and Supreme Court buildings. Now, President Da Silva, Lula as he's known, who was actually a former president, he used to be president of Brazil, and then lost re-election and has re-won it. He's seen as a very popular, extremely successful and extremely ambitious left-wing activist. He's very good at his job, very popular. He's won re-election, but he was not in residence at the time. He was actually on a trip to Sao Paulo. I wasn't in the presidential palace at the time. I vehemently repudiate these anti-democratic acts, which must urgently undergo the rigor of law, Brazil's Senate president tweeted. So this is a big deal because it shows the ongoing legacy of then-President Donald Trump's influence on other right-wing authoritarians, people like Bolsonaro, who, by the way, did not concede the election and did not congratulate now President Da Silva on his victory. As a matter of fact, he worked with Trump supporters like Steve Bannon to try to dispute the results of Brazil's election. The only thing that was different between Bolsonaro and Trump in this respect is that Bolsonaro did authorize his chief of staff 2 days after Bolsonaro lost the election to begin the transition process. This was back in November. President Bolsonaro has authorized the chief of staff, when requested, to start the transition process. So that is a radical improvement over what Donald Trump did. But at the same time, Bolsonaro did not concede the results of the election. He did everything in his power to challenge it. And it's not known if he is condemning the attacks on these 3 federal buildings by his supporters. But again, it's a very sobering reminder of the effect of January 6th. Again, 2 years almost to the day. It also makes you wonder if we'll see things like this in the future in other countries that are governed by right-wing authoritarians if and when they lose election or re-election. Hopefully not, and we'll see what comes of this, but scary step or scary development for democracy on an international scale.